If you're that guy and you just came off a draw, I think rematching will be the most competitive thing to do as an athlete. With the Jake Paul situation, it's like it's a money grab fight.
Davis was in a bit of a hole, and he gets an opportunity to fight Jake Paul for $200 million or whatever. I don't mind it at all. As long as Gervonta Davis comes back to the world of boxing after he gets done with this, hey man, you got your money, no worries.
The fight draws closer as Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis train intensely for their upcoming showdown. Jake is focused on building his power and size, while Tank sharpens his speed and knockout punches. Both camps remain fully locked in, and the tension continues to rise as fans eagerly watch how each fighter prepares for one of the most anticipated matchups.
I don't get it.
Yeah. This Santa Cruz out here to catch it.
Dig down, let it burn, baby, let it burn. Oh.
Mind over matter, son. Mind over matter.
This is the blues on.
Ain't nobody doing no shit like this. Come in the desert. Trying to stay away from the desert. He come in the desert.
Shakur Stevenson shared his thoughts on the growing trend of unconventional boxing matchups. He argued that while fights like Jake Paul against Gervonta Davis add no true value to the sport, a showdown such as Floyd Mayweather versus Mike Tyson carries a different significance. In his view, both Mayweather and Tyson are legends who have already secured their legacies, and if they choose to return to the ring to earn money, it should not be considered damaging to boxing. Stevenson emphasized that such events bring nostalgia to fans and do not diminish the sport in the same way celebrity-style exhibitions do.
Bad for the sport of boxing.
I mean, I feel like in Floyd and Tyson situation is different than Jake Paul and Buddy. I feel like with Floyd and Tyson, it's like, okay, y'all deserve it. Y'all legends, y'all paid homage, y'all did the most for the sport of boxing already. So you deserve a big payday and be cool. I'm cool with it. I like it. But with Jake and Buddy, I feel like Buddy is a participate in the sport of boxing right now. And he just came off a draw, his last fight. So if you're a real champion and top level guy that you say you are, which I think you are too, I think you're the truth. But if you're that guy and you just came off a draw, I think rematching will be the most competitive thing to do as an athlete. With the Jake Paul situation, it's like it's a money grab fight. So to me, it's like some WWE shit.
Do you think it helps? Like, I mean, okay, so he gets this fight with Jake. His value goes up.
No, it doesn't.
You don't? It don't?
Not in the sport of boxing.
You don't think
it may.
The demand more because he's, because when we looked at the was a Floyd and
just hypothetical. We speak hypotheticals at time, right? You go in there and that big ass nigga knock him the fuck out. I'm just saying hypothetical. Go in there and knock Tank the fuck out.
That big ass nigga being Jake Paul.
Yes.
Okay, just
knock him the fuck out. Because he's bigger than him.
Yeah.
For one. By chance, it is a fight.
I think the thing is with Buddy and Jake fight, I feel like it's two sides of me with it. Because from a competitive aspect and me being the mentality that I got, I feel as though I probably would have done a rematch. But then from a business aspect, if I would have done the rematch and I did not win the fight, the Jake Paul fight will be a lot less money and a lot less lucrative. So,
you think so?
From a business aspect, I understand that anybody that with a business mind probably would have took that fight for as much money as it was. So I'm a realist. Like, I ain't gonna just bash, bro.
No.
UFC President Dana White gave a blunt response. When asked about the proposed clash between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis, White claimed that very few fans were truly excited about the matchup, but admitted it could actually benefit Davis. Davis had been dealing with public scrutiny and challenges outside the ring, which slowed his momentum. During this vulnerable period, Jake Paul stepped in with a financial offer. White noted that although the event is being mocked, it could provide Davis with exposure and earnings at a time when he needs them most. Expanding on his view, White surprised many by suggesting that Jake Paul could realistically defeat Gervonta Davis. His reasoning was not based on technical boxing skills, but on pure physicality. White stressed that Paul has the advantages of size, strength, and reach, while Davis, though powerful, is much smaller and used to fighting lighter men. For White, the result of such a fight would not come down to who is the better boxer, but rather whether Davis could overcome the overwhelming natural attributes Paul brings into the ring.
Jake Paul to beat Gervonta Davis. This is not a fight that I'm excited for at all. I would rather have Gervonta Davis fighting in a real boxing match against the likes of Lamont Roach, Shakur Stevenson, Keyshawn Davis, Emmanuel Navarrete, anybody that is in the 135-pound division and around. That's who I want to see Gervonta Davis fight. However, we live in a world where everybody is trying to do things as big as possible. And the biggest fights possible right now, unfortunately for the sport of boxing, is an exhibition fight between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis. So I do like it for this reason, though. I like it because it is allowing Gervonta Davis to have a fight that is going to be big and that the mainstream media is going to have to cover, the mainstream media outside the world of boxing. Gervonta Davis has been, without a doubt, blocked, having venues blocked, having fighters, having other promoters paying fighters away to go different directions from Gervonta Davis. So Gervonta Davis was in a bit of a hole. And he gets an opportunity to fight Jake Paul for $200 million or whatever. I don't mind it at all. As long as Gervonta Davis comes back to the world of boxing after he gets done with this, hey man, you got your money, no worries. But you gotta love Dana White having the audacity to pick Jake Paul in this fight.
Former world champion Paulie Malignaggi shared his honest thoughts on the idea of Terence Crawford stepping into the ring with Jake Paul. While he praised Crawford as an elite fighter with one of the best skill sets in modern boxing, he cautioned that size differences can sometimes outweigh technical brilliance. Malignaggi noted that history has repeatedly shown smaller champions struggling when moving too far up in weight. He emphasized that Jake Paul's natural frame, combined with his raw punching power, could create serious problems for Crawford, despite his superior technique. For Malignaggi, the concern is not about talent, but about physical limits. Boxing remains a sport where size, strength, and durability matter. He suggested that even a fighter as sharp and adaptable as Crawford might find it extremely risky to face someone who outweighs him so heavily, proving that skill cannot always erase size disadvantages.
I think Davis is more to lose because he's the bona fide world champion. I don't care if he's much smaller. I think Jake Paul has sort of plateaued as far as where his boxing is concerned. It's rather low level. Yeah. He's big, he's physical, he's strong, he can hit. So there is that risk. Davis, at lightweight, you're in a moment where it's too physical for you. You can clinch. Against the heavyweight, where you clinching? You ain't getting out of that corner just clinching anymore if you run out of space. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. But Davis, listen, there's a lot of talking points that I'm sure we'll get into when this gets closer to the fight. Davis can still punch at lightweight. Can he drop a heavyweight? There's a lot to gain there, right? If Davis knocks
the answer is yes.
If Davis drops Jake on his ass, as much as Davis is the one with more to lose, it's still a highlight moment.
A visual that will stay forever.
Yeah, but if you get dropped, even if you're smaller, you're still a world champion in multiple weight classes. If you get dropped, what's the look? What's the feel? On the inside, as boxers, me and Chris Aldry, the champ, even you, Jimmy, you have fight experience, so we know that the risk is a big guy that big hits you. You're probably going down if you're a small guy if he hits you clean. So we know the risk, but how does it look to the public eye who don't understand that? You know what I mean? The public. So there is a lot to lose, though. There's a bit to gain. I wouldn't necessarily have an issue with this had Davis's career arc been one that benefited boxing. Davis was manufactured and put into a position where he's supposed to benefit boxing, and I don't think he has. I think he's hurt boxing. So by giving him this reward, that's my problem. Why are we watching this? Why don't you make him earn his spot that he still hasn't earned, mind you?
Analysts reported that organizers were forced to make a major adjustment when the originally selected venue declined to host the highly publicized matchup. Local officials reportedly dismissed it as more of a circus act than a legitimate sporting contest, leading to an outright refusal of approval. This decision surprised many, as the initial location was considered perfect for drawing a large crowd and generating significant revenue. Rather than delaying or canceling the fight, promoters rushed to secure an alternative site that would embrace the spectacle. Within days, they locked in a new venue willing to host the clash, ensuring the event would move forward as planned. However, this sudden change has fueled criticism over the fight's overall credibility. Detractors argue that if a venue of such prestige rejected it, the contest itself may not carry much sporting value. Many now view the matchup as being driven more by entertainment and financial gain than genuine competitive merit. The abrupt relocation has become a headline in itself, with observers suggesting that the controversy surrounding the venue change highlights the ongoing debate over whether these crossover fights truly belong in the boxing world.
35 pounds. Jake Paul is over 50 pounds heavier than Gervonta Tank Davis, and he's nearly a foot taller than Gervonta Tank Davis. So no sanction body wants to, and no commission wants to, should I say, I keep saying sanction body, no commission wants to sanction it. They don't want to be a part of it, as I told you guys. So they announced that the fight was going to take place November 14th in Atlanta at the State Farm Arena where the Atlanta Hawks play. And the Georgia Athletic Commission, he came out and he made a serious statement. And he let the world know that they falsely advertised this fight, okay? Because no commission won't sanction it to be a real boxing match, let alone they're not even interested in allowing it to be an exhibition, okay? They don't even want it to be, they don't even want to be responsible for an exhibition of this magnitude, right? So he comes out and he says, the commissioner, head of the Georgia Commission, he comes out, he says, quote, I believe it's in the public's interest to know because they've been promoting something they should not have been promoting. It's the dumbest thing I ever heard. It's a money grabber, and I'm not okay with that. So they telling him it's just for the money.
Retired champion Carl Froch shared his opinion by labeling Jake Paul's career as one driven purely by money. Froch argued that Paul is not pursuing boxing greatness, but instead chasing financial opportunities. In his view, Paul chooses opponents based on what will generate the most attention and revenue rather than seeking the toughest challenges. Froch admitted that this approach is effective from a marketing standpoint, but insisted it prevents Paul from earning respect as a genuine competitor in the sport.
He mentioned me before, and there'll be people out there saying, oh, Carl Froch's talking about himself, he's after a payday. Listen, I'm not after a payday. I'm doing all right. There's no problems with my finances. But I'll take the fucking payday, of course I will. And I'll end Jake Paul with one punch. I'd go in there one-armed and beat this guy. He can't box. He's absolutely fucking useless, which we saw last night with Mike Tyson. Talking about Canelo Alvarez. I've not mentioned Canelo Alvarez because it's just laughable. Jake Paul, Canelo Alvarez, can you imagine? I mean, Jake Paul fancies that and he jumps in the ring with him. I will pay homage to him because fair play, if he jumps in there with Canelo Alvarez, he'll get absolutely fucking destroyed and it will be fast and it will be messy and it will be bad for his health as well, potentially.
MMA star Nate Diaz dismissed the matchup entirely, saying he did not even want to give a prediction. In Diaz's view, the bout is not a legitimate contest, but a spectacle created solely for pay-per-view sales. He criticized the direction of boxing for relying too heavily on these manufactured events, which he believes have damaged the sport's credibility. Diaz argued that such fights are not about competition, but purely about profit. For that reason, he refuses to view them as serious sporting events.
I gotta ask you, Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis. Does Davis have a chance?
Gervonta is a great boxer, but he ain't gonna be.
So you got Jake Paul by knockout, or?
No, I don't got anybody, but I don't think.
He's just too small.
It's just It just, I don't want to beat up somebody that small. I don't want to, you know what I'm saying?
What do you think of the fight?
I don't want to lose to somebody that. There's no point in the fight. It's a great fight, actually. I'm not hating on the fight, but I think my thoughts on it is let's watch and see what happens.
Ryan Garcia said that boxing is turning into WWE.
Yeah,
with that type of matchup. What do you agree? Last thing, White House card, like he said, you want Conor McGregor?
Yeah, but the whole thing's on WWE. So
right.
It's like, at least that's happening and getting something to talk about, something to watch. And I'm looking forward to that fight, actually.
One of the most debated aspects of the proposed matchup between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis centers on the glaring difference in their size and physical attributes. Jake Paul, who has faced larger opponents and naturally carries far more weight, enters the discussion with a clear edge in height, reach, and overall frame. In contrast, Gervonta Davis is a 5'5" fighter who typically competes around 130 pounds, excelling in divisions where his explosiveness and punching power have made him a feared presence. Against opponents of a similar build, Davis's ability to close the distance and deliver fight-ending shots has been his defining strength. However, when paired with someone as large and physically imposing as Paul, questions immediately arise about whether his power would be enough to even the playing field. Analysts worry that Davis might struggle to get inside without absorbing punishing shots from the much bigger Paul, whose size allows him to control range more effectively. The debate often circles back to whether skill and speed can overcome such a massive physical disadvantage. While some fans believe Davis's explosiveness gives him a chance, many others argue that the sheer size gap could make this fight far more dangerous than competitive.
Holy shit, Jake Paul versus Tank Davis is actually happening. What the f is going on? I guess Tank is going broke because that's the only justifiable reason you ruin your legacy against a guy like Jake Paul. And yes, I do think Jake Paul is going to win. Tank Davis is a much better boxer and has crazy power, but he's 5'5", 130. That power is not going to carry over against someone who is 6'1", 210. And it's not like Jake is bad. Yes, his fights are boring. He says he's going to step in the ring and sleep his opponents, but the only people who end up sleeping are the audience. Mike Tyson fight. But at the end of the day, he's a big guy with power who's training boxing full time, and he has beaten some legitimate competition. Woodley, Nate Diaz, Anderson Silva, Mike Perry had a competitive fight with Tommy Fury, but it's crazy how particular Jake has to be when selecting his opponents. They have to have enough clout to be interesting, enough skill to be taken seriously as a threat, but at the same time have clear weaknesses and disadvantages that Jake and his team can exploit to win. Now that he's fighting an elite boxer, he has to fight someone 7 weight classes down. I mean, Tank could win if he makes Jake do a very aggressive weight cut, but I just don't see that happening. I got Jake by 3rd round TKO. He should put me on the co-main event and allow me to fight Francis Ngannou. That would be an easy 1st round knockout for myself.
Fans and analysts alike have voiced frustration over the way unusual fights have dominated headlines in recent years. The proposed matchup between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis is often cited as an example of this troubling trend. Instead of highlighting meaningful contests that crown new champions or settle rivalries, promoters are increasingly pushing spectacles that blur the line between sport and entertainment. Critics argue that this shift undermines boxing's tradition and disappoints purists who expect competitive matchups that showcase the best talents rather than events created solely for media attention.
So breaking news, Jake Paul will be taking on Tank Davis in an exhibition on November 15th in Atlanta, Georgia, live on Netflix. And this is crazy for multiple reasons. One, they have a huge size difference. Tank Davis, he's a lightweight, normally fights at 135 pounds. And Jake Paul, he's a cruiserweight, usually fights at 200 pounds. So there's a good 60 to 65 pound difference here. It could also mean that Tank Davis is no longer interested in competing for titles anymore and is cashing out of boxing. You know, there's been a lot of talks that Tank is nearing retirement this year, and he was supposed to rematch Lamar Roach after their first fight went to a draw. But instead of chasing the Roach rematch, instead he takes the Jake Paul fight for money. So maybe this is Tank's last, or one of his last fights. And same for Jake Paul. He just got ranked number 14 at cruiserweight after beating Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. So he's supposed to be fighting other ranked contenders or top guys at cruiserweight. But instead, he's taking a money fight. But I do expect these two to go after each other. Even though it is an exhibition, I don't think it'll just be some boring sparring match. I do think they'll try a decent amount. But Tank, obviously, he's a lot more skilled. Jake, he has a lot more size. But you guys let me know who you got.
An analyst discussing the rise of the Paul brothers noted that their strategy has always centered on maximizing attention. He explained that Logan and Jake do not concern themselves with critics because every controversy only fuels greater interest. Whether praised or mocked, they continue to dominate conversations by orchestrating polarizing events. From this perspective, their choice of opponents is less about boxing achievement and more about generating headlines. According to this view, the brothers' ability to remain in the spotlight is the key factor ensuring their continued presence in the sport, regardless of fan disapproval.
It's like blockbuster events. They don't look at them as sporting events. They look at them as spectacle. I mean, Logan's in the fucking WWE, for God's sake. That's the way they look at it. And that's the way Jake looks at these kind of events. He does, because he's fighting Gervonta Davis. Into any sports, hardcore, competition, morale, effort, legacy, hierarchy-minded sports person, none of it makes any sense. Because we go, well, no, Gervonta is not in Jake's weight class. What does that prove? We do sport to prove who's better at sport, not with inherent advantages or disadvantages or XYZ. Logan, and I guess Jake for that matter, look at these like, we want to get the most eyes possible regardless of what people say. And I think that Logan and Jake both believe this because of the disadvantages we came into the sport with. If we are to do better than people expected, or if we're able to win or knock someone out, then we're better, which is not true because there's massive disadvantages on the other end. I would say that outweigh the disadvantages on their end, at least Jake's end. The way they market these things and act like if I beat Gervonta, I'm better, or if Logan was like, I beat Floyd and I'm the best boxer in the world when Floyd wasn't the best boxer when Logan fought him, and also it was a 60-pound weight difference. Like, the way they categorize and narrative shape around it is the thing people get upset about.
That's it for today's video. Stay tuned until next time.